The examination hall buzzed with nervous energy as students from across the galaxy settled into their seats. Danny Ortega slid into his assigned spot near the back, his human frame looking small compared to some of his classmates. To his left sat a towering Dralian named Vorn, whose rocky exterior clicked softly as he shifted. To his right was Pip, a fuzzy creature from Verdania who barely reached Danny's shoulder and looked like someone had crossed a rabbit with a flower. Professor Hillax entered through the main doors, her forearms carrying data tablets and holographic projectors. She was Centaurian, which meant she had brilliant blue skin and eyes that could see into the ultraviolet spectrum. Her reputation preceded her. She had studied dangerous creatures on 70 different worlds and survived encounters that would have killed most researchers. "Welcome to the Interspecies Biology Championship," Hillax announced, her voice carrying easily through the vast space. "Today you will prove whether you deserve to call yourselves xenobiologists or if you are merely tourists pretending to understand the universe." Danny felt Pip trembling beside him. The little Verdanian had been studying for weeks, surrounding himself with books and recordings until their shared dormitory looked like a library had exploded. Pip came from a world where the most dangerous creature was something called a thornhopper, which apparently had mild venom that made you itchy for a few hours. "The rules are simple," Hillax continued, activating the massive holographic display at the front of the hall. "I will show you images of predators from worlds across known space. You will identify the species, explain their hunting methods, and rate their danger level. Points are awarded for accuracy and detail." The first image appeared. It showed a sleek, six-legged creature with midnight black fur and eyes that glowed yellow. Students around the room immediately started whispering and typing on their tablets. Vorn raised one massive hand. "Night Stalker from Drail 7. Hunts in packs of 5 to 7. Uses thermal vision to track prey in the dark. Danger level moderate if encountered alone, severe if facing a pack." "Correct," Hillax said, making a note on her tablet. 3 points to Vorn. The questions continued. "A creature with tentacles that secreted paralyzing toxins. A flying predator with razor-sharp talons. A burrowing thing that could sense vibrations from a mile away." Danny noticed something strange. His classmates treated these creatures with such fear and respect, but to him they seemed almost manageable. The tentacled thing reminded him of a jellyfish. The flying predator was basically a really aggressive hawk. Pip managed to answer one question correctly, identifying an herbivore from a neighboring system to Verdania. The little creature practically glowed with pride, his fur standing on end in excitement. "Now we move to the advanced section," Hillax said, and the atmosphere in the room changed. Students sat up straighter. Even Vorn, who had been confident until now, looked nervous. "These images come from restricted survey files. The creatures you are about to see have killed trained exploration teams. They represent the apex predators of some of the most hostile environments we have discovered." The hologram shifted. What appeared made several students gasp. It was a massive creature at least 4 meters tall, covered in thick white fur. Its paws were enormous, tipped with black claws that looked like they could tear through metal. The face was long, with a black nose and small eyes that somehow managed to look both intelligent and hungry. "This predator was encountered on a world in the outer territories," Hillax explained. "Survey Team Gamma 9 lost 3 members before they could retreat. The creature demonstrated incredible strength, aggression, and territorial behavior. It can run at speeds exceeding 40 kilometers per hour despite its size, and its bite force has been measured at over 5,000 newtons." Silence filled the hall. Danny watched as students frantically searched their databases. Pip had actually hidden his face in his paws. Vorn's rocky brow was furrowed in concentration. A Kthari student, insectoid and usually brilliant at classification, ventured a guess. "Is it from the Korvax sector? Something related to the ice hunters?" "No," Hillax said. Another student tried. "The frozen wastes of Pelion 6? "No." Danny looked at the image more carefully. He tilted his head, studying the creature's posture and features. Recognition dawned on him, followed immediately by amusement. He tried to keep his face neutral, but a smile tugged at his lips. "Does someone find this funny?" Hillax asked, her multiple eyes focusing on Danny. Perhaps the human student would like to share what he finds so amusing about a predator that has killed sentient beings. Every head in the room turned toward Danny. He felt his face warm but raised his hand anyway. "Yes, Danny Ortega," Hillax said, her tone suggesting she expected nothing useful. That's a polar bear, Danny said simply. They live on Earth, mostly in the Arctic regions. We've known about them for thousands of years. The room erupted. Students started talking over each other. Pip looked at Danny like he had just claimed the sky was made of cheese. Impossible, Thorn rumbled. Nothing that dangerous could be common knowledge to a species. You would have driven them to extinction or been driven to extinction yourselves. I mean, there aren't as many as there used to be, Danny admitted. Climate change and habitat loss have been issues, but they're still around. We have researchers who study them, tourists who take boats to see them, documentaries about them. Hillax's expression was unreadable. She pulled up Earth's file on her tablet, and Danny saw her eyes widen as she read. She looked up at the class, then back at Danny. It says here that Earth is classified as a death world, she said slowly. Class 9 threat level. It lists multiple apex predators, extreme weather events, hostile microbiology, and atmospheric conditions that would be fatal to most species without protection. Yeah, it can be a bit rough, Danny agreed, trying to sound modest, but you get used to it. Pip made a squeaking sound that might have been disbelief or horror. You mentioned tourists, Hillax pressed. Your people willingly travel to locations inhabited by these creatures for recreation? Well, yeah, Danny said. I mean, you're supposed to be careful. Keep your distance, don't surprise them. Store your food properly. Basic safety stuff. They're mostly interested in seals and fish anyway. Mostly, Thorn repeated. They're wild animals, Danny explained. You have to respect that. But they're not actively hunting humans or anything. We're not really their preferred food. The way he said it, so casually as if being not preferred food was somehow reassuring, made several students look physically ill. Hillax made several notes on her tablet. 5 points to Danny Ortega for correct identification and contextual knowledge. She paused, studying him. Tell me, do humans have experience with many such predators? Danny thought about his younger sister's pet python, about the neighbor's cat that had once brought a whole rabbit to their doorstep, about the time his uncle had gone cage diving with great white sharks for fun. I guess you could say that, he answered. The cafeteria during lunch break looked like a scene from a nature documentary, except the animals were sitting at tables and discussing xenobiology. Danny carried his tray to an empty corner, hoping to eat in peace. The morning session had left him feeling exposed, like everyone was suddenly seeing him differently. That hope lasted about 30 seconds. Mind if we join you? Thorn's deep voice rumbled above him. The Dralian didn't wait for an answer, settling his massive frame onto the reinforced bench across from Danny. Pip followed, though the little Verdanian kept a noticeably greater distance than usual. That was quite a performance this morning, Thorn said, picking at something that looked like crystallized minerals on his plate, identifying a classified apex predator as if it were a common pest. I wasn't trying to show off, Danny said. I just knew what it was. Pip finally spoke up, his voice higher than normal. Danny, I have been residing in the same dormitory as you for 6 planetary rotations. 6 rotations? And you never mentioned that your homeworld is populated by creatures that can kill exploration teams? It doesn't really come up in conversation, Danny said with a shrug. I mean, what was I supposed to say? Hi, I'm Danny, nice to meet you. By the way, my planet has lots of things that can kill you? Yes, Pip and Vorn said simultaneously. A few other students had drifted closer, pretending to be focused on their own meals but clearly listening. Danny recognized a few from his chemistry class and one of the computer labs. Is it true what the professor said? Asked a crystalline student whose name Danny thought was Lear. That humans travel to see these bears on purpose? Yeah, it's true, Danny confirmed. There are these boats that take you up north where you can watch them hunt seals. Or there are lodges where you can observe them from safe distances. Some people do photography. But why? Lear's translucent form seemed to shimmer with confusion. What possible benefit could come from proximity to such danger? Danny had never really thought about it before. I guess because they're amazing. They're powerful and beautiful, and seeing them in their natural habitat is special. Makes you feel connected to the wild parts of the world. Connected to death, you mean? Pip muttered, pushing food around his plate without eating. What other creatures does Earth have? Vorn asked, and Danny could see genuine curiosity beneath the Dralian's rocky exterior. The file mentioned multiple apex predators. Danny considered the question. Well, there are great white sharks. They're fish, but really big ones with lots of teeth. They live in the oceans. You have apex predators in your water? Someone gasped. Sure, Danny said. Not just sharks either. There are orcas, which are actually pretty smart. And crocodiles, though those are more amphibious. Oh, and box jellyfish, cone snails, blue-ringed octopi. Lots of venomous stuff in the ocean. And humans swim in these oceans? Lear asked. All the time. Swimming is really popular. Surfing, diving, snorkeling. My cousin goes spearfishing on weekends. Pip made a sound like he was choking. Your cousin enters the water inhabited by these creatures and hunts fish using a primitive weapon? Well, the spear gun is pretty high-tech, actually, Danny said, missing the point entirely. The students exchanged looks that Danny was beginning to recognize. It was the look people gave someone who was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid, and they hadn't decided which yet. What about on land? Vorn pressed. Besides these polar bears? Oh, tons of stuff. Lions, tigers, leopards, jaguars. Those are all big cats. Then there are brown bears, which are related to polar bears. Black bears too, but they're smaller and less aggressive. Wolves hunt in packs, hyenas, crocodiles on land too. Hippopotamuses kill more people in Africa than almost any other animal. How does your species survive? Lear asked seriously. We're smart, Danny said. And we have tools. Plus, most of these animals don't actively hunt humans. They're just dangerous if you're careless or unlucky. Most? Vorn seized on the word. I mean, mosquitoes kill the most humans technically, but that's because of diseases they carry, Danny explained. And snakes depending on the region. But direct predation is pretty rare. Mosquitoes, Pip repeated. Tiny flying insects that bite you and drink blood. The silence that followed was profound. Let me understand this correctly, Vorn said slowly. Your planet has insects that feed on your blood and you classify this as minor? They're annoying, Danny admitted. But they're small. You just swat them. We're talking about creatures that bite through your skin to access your circulatory system, Lear said, their crystalline voice tinged with horror. And you dismiss them as annoying? Danny was starting to understand that his normal was not universal normal. I guess when you put it that way, it sounds worse. It sounds like a nightmare world, Pip said flatly. It sounds like the kind of place where evolution went wrong and created an arms race of increasingly deadly creatures. That's actually pretty accurate, Danny agreed. But it's home, you know. You adapt. How? Vorn demanded. How does a species adapt to being surrounded by that much danger without developing natural weapons or armor? We used our brains, Danny said. We made weapons and tools. We learned to work together. We built shelters and defenses. And we studied the dangerous things, figured out their patterns, learned to predict them. But surely you must fear them, Lear said. Some people do, Danny acknowledged. But fear can be managed. You learn what's actually dangerous versus what just seems dangerous. You take precautions. And honestly, most of the time the dangerous creatures are more afraid of you than you are of them. Somehow I doubt that, Vorn said. A notification chimed across everyone's tablets. Professor Hillax had posted an announcement. The afternoon session would continue with even more challenging specimens. Students were encouraged to use the break to research and prepare. As the group dispersed, Pip lingered behind. Danny, I must ask you something important. Sure, what's up? Do you have any of these dangerous creatures in our dormitory? Danny thought about how to answer that. Fluffy was waiting back in their room, probably sleeping on the bed like he always did. He was just a dog, normal. Friendly, not dangerous at all by human standards. Define dangerous, Danny said carefully. Pip's fur stood completely on end. That is not a reassuring response. The afternoon session revealed more creatures that made Danny's classmates visibly uncomfortable. Professor Hillax seemed to be building towards something, each hologram more intimidating than the last. A serpent-like predator that could unhinge its jaw to swallow prey whole. A tunneling creature with acid for blood, something with too many legs and eyes that hunted by sound alone. Danny found himself answering more questions than he intended. The serpent reminded him of pythons back home. The acid-blooded creature had a similar defense mechanism to bombardier beetles. The sound hunter was basically a more dangerous version of a bat. You keep comparing these to Earth creatures, Hillax observed after Danny's fifth correct answer. Is there nothing in the galaxy that your world hasn't already produced some version of? I'm sure there is, Danny said diplomatically, but evolution tends to solve problems in similar ways. Predator, prey, defense, attack, the strategies repeat. Spoken like someone who has seen too much death, Forn muttered, earning a few nervous laughs. Hillix pulled up a new image. This one showed a creature that was all teeth and muscle, built low to the ground with powerful legs. Its hide looked thick enough to stop bullets, and its eyes held a kind of intelligence that suggested it knew exactly how dangerous it was. Encountered on a mining colony in the outer reach, Hillix explained. It killed 17 workers before they managed to evacuate. Security teams with military-grade weapons struggled to bring it down. Note the jaw structure and the muscular build. This is a pursuit predator that also has the strength to fight prey much larger than itself. Students studied the image carefully. Several ventured guesses about distant worlds known for producing aggressive fauna. All were wrong. Danny raised his hand slowly. Of course, Hillix sighed. Let me guess. Another common creature from Earth? Actually, I'm not sure, Danny admitted. Can you rotate the image? The hologram spun, showing the creature from different angles. Danny leaned forward, studying the proportions and features. Okay, yeah, that's a honey badger, he said finally. Or maybe a wolverine. Hard to tell from this angle. Both are from Earth, though. The room had stopped being shocked and moved into a sort of resigned horror. A honey badger, Hillix repeated slowly. And this is called a honey badger because it is small and sweet, I assume? No, because it raids beehives for honey, Danny explained. They have really thick skin that bee stings can't penetrate, and they're kind of famous for being aggressive and fearless. How aggressive are we discussing? Forn asked. There's videos of them fighting lions, Danny said. They don't win, obviously, but they don't back down either. They'll take on pretty much anything. And these exist in the same environment as the bears you mentioned earlier? Lear asked. Different regions mostly, but Earth in general, yeah. Pip had given up taking notes and was just staring at Danny with an expression that suggested he was reevaluating every interaction they'd ever had. I am beginning to understand something, Vorn announced to the room. Humans are not brave. They simply have no concept of an appropriate threat response because their entire world is trying to kill them. Several students nodded in agreement. Professor Hillax held up one of her 4 hands for silence. Actually, that raises an interesting point for our studies. Danny, would you say that humans have a different baseline for danger than other species? I guess so, Danny admitted. I mean, I didn't think about it until I came here. You all seem really worried about things that don't seem that bad to me. Don't seem that bad, Hillix repeated. A creature that killed 17 armed miners doesn't seem that bad. Well, 17 is a lot, Danny conceded. But it's one animal. You evacuate, you come back with better preparation, you handle it. Or you leave that area to the animals and mine somewhere else. We did eventually reclaim the colony, Hillix said thoughtfully. It took 3 months and significant resources. Sounds about right for dealing with wildlife, Danny said. The way he said wildlife, like it was a minor inconvenience rather than a catastrophic threat, made several students exchange concerned glances. Let's try something different, Hillix suggested. She dismissed the hologram and faced the class directly. Danny, what would you consider actually dangerous? What creature from Earth would make you, personally, want to evacuate and call for backup? Danny thought about it seriously. Depends on the situation and what equipment I have, but generally, anything venomous that I can't see easily. Snakes in tall grass, spiders in dark corners, jellyfish in murky water. Not because they're more deadly, but because you can't prepare for what you can't see. So visibility is your primary concern? Hillix asked. And understanding behavior, Danny added. A bear is dangerous, but bears are predictable. They have territories, food preferences, warning signs. You can usually avoid problems if you're smart about it. But something with unpredictable behavior, or something that's territorial in ways you don't expect, that's worse. What about something that actively hunts humans? Lear asked. That's rare, Danny said. Most predators don't see humans as prey. We're the wrong shape, wrong size, wrong behavior pattern. The few that do hunt humans are usually old or injured animals that can't catch their normal prey, or they're defending territory or young. Most predators don't hunt humans, Vorn repeated, which implies some do. Well, yeah, saltwater crocodiles sometimes, big cats in certain regions, polar bears if they're hungry enough. But it's not common. He lists apex predators like he's reading a grocery list. Pip whispered to the student next to him. Professor Hillix made a decision. Class dismissed for today. However, I'm adding a new assignment. I want everyone to research Earth's ecosystem and prepare a report on how humans achieved dominance on such a hostile world. Danny, please remain behind. As students filed out, Danny heard fragments of their conversations. They were already forming study groups, pulling up Earth's database files, sharing their shock at what they were discovering. Pip gave Danny one last worried look before leaving. When the room was empty except for Danny and the professor, Hillix settled her forearms on her desk and studied him carefully. I need to ask you something important, she said, and I need you to answer honestly. Okay, Danny agreed. Earlier, your roommate asked if you had any dangerous creatures in your dormitory. You deflected the question. I'm going to ask it officially now as your professor and as the station's head of xenobiology. Do you have any Earth creatures in your quarters? Danny hesitated. Define creature? Danny. His name is Fluffy. Hillix's expression went through several changes. You brought a predator onto this station. He's not a predator, he's a pet. What species? Dog. Canis familiaris. Hillix pulled up her database with all four hands typing simultaneously. Professor Hillix's office had become the center of what Danny was starting to think of as an incident. 3 security officers stood near the door, their various appendages resting on weapons they hopefully wouldn't need to use. The station's administrator, a tall being named Quellen with skin that shifted colors based on emotion, currently displayed a pattern that suggested extreme concern. Let me see if I understand this correctly, Quellen said, his colors flickering between orange and red. You brought a descendant of an apex pack predator onto my station and registered it as a comfort animal? He is a comfort animal, Danny insisted. Dogs have been human companions for over 15,000 years. They're domesticated. Domesticated, Hillix repeated, reading from her tablet. Yet according to this file, their wild ancestors are wolves, which you mentioned earlier as pack hunters. Canis familiaris retains significant genetic similarity to Canis lupus. Bite force of over 200 pounds per square inch. Pursuit predator adaptations including enhanced endurance and pack coordination instincts. Fluffy doesn't hunt anything except his own tail, Danny protested, and he's terrible at catching that. The creature's incompetence is not reassuring, Quellen said sharply. One of the security officers, a being that resembled an armored centipede, spoke up. Sir, we should confiscate the creature immediately. Standard protocol for unauthorized dangerous fauna. He's not unauthorized, Danny argued. I filled out all the forms. Companion animal, fully vaccinated, non-aggressive temperament. Everything was approved. Because you listed him as a companion animal, Hillix said. Not as a predator. He's both. That's what dogs are. The concept seemed to break something in the room. Quellen's colors went completely gray, which Danny had learned meant the administrator was experiencing something beyond his normal emotional range. You're telling me, Quellen said slowly, that humans keep predators as companions? Voluntarily. We don't really think of them as predators, Danny tried to explain. They're just dogs. They live in our homes, sleep in our beds, play with our children. They're family. They sleep in your beds? The centipede officer asked. You allow a creature with that bite force near you while you're unconscious? Well, yeah. Where else would he sleep? A secure containment facility, Quellen suggested. Behind reinforced barriers, with sedation protocols. That seems excessive for a dog, Danny said. Does it? Hillix pulled up a video file. This is security footage from when your companion animal arrived at the station. Watch. The hologram showed the docking bay 3 months ago. Danny walked down the ramp carrying bags, and beside him trotted Fluffy, his rust-colored coat shining under the station lights. The camera angle showed what Danny had never noticed because he was used to it. Every single being in that docking bay had frozen when Fluffy appeared. A cargo loader had dropped his equipment. 2 travelers had literally run away. I thought everyone was just being weird about the new human student, Danny said quietly. They were being appropriately cautious about the predator walking through a public space. Quellen corrected. but nobody said anything. Because your paperwork indicated it was a registered companion animal, Hilex explained. We assumed it was something harmless from Earth. Perhaps a small herbivore or a docile creature, not something that could theoretically kill several beings before security could respond. Fluffy wouldn't kill anyone, Danny insisted. He's the gentlest dog I've ever met. He's scared of vacuum cleaners. Why would a predator fear a cleaning device? The centipede officer asked. I don't know, he just does. Look, can I just show you? Let me bring him here, you can meet him. You'll see he's harmless. The security officers immediately moved to block the door. Quellen's colors flashed bright red. Absolutely not, the administrator said. You will not bring that creature into a populated area of this station. He's been in populated areas for 3 months, Danny pointed out. He goes to the park level every day. He's walked past hundreds of beings. Nothing has happened. The park level? Hilax looked alarmed. You take it to where younglings play? He likes to chase the floating balls. And yeah, lots of kids pet him. They think he's soft. Younglings have been touching it? Quellen looked like he might faint if his species did that. They're fine, Danny said, feeling defensive now. Fluffy loves kids. He's super gentle with them. Hilax and Quellen exchanged a long look. We need to see this creature, Hilax decided, but on our terms. Controlled environment. Full security presence. This is ridiculous, Danny muttered. This is protocol, Quellen corrected. Officer Brent, assemble a containment team. Tranquilizer weapons, capture nets, the works. Professor Hilax and I will accompany you to inspect the creature, Danny. You will come with us and maintain control of your animal at all times. 20 minutes later, the strangest procession Danny had ever been part of made its way through the station corridors. 6 security officers in full tactical gear led the way. Quellen and Hilax followed, both carrying scanning equipment. Danny walked in the middle, flanked by 2 more officers who kept their weapons trained on him, which seemed unfair since he wasn't the one they were worried about. Students and station residents pressed themselves against walls as the group passed. Word had apparently spread fast. Danny heard whispers following them. Is it the human's predator? I heard it has killed dozens. My friend said it's the size of a shuttle. Someone told me it breathes fire. Fluffy doesn't breathe fire, Danny called back, which probably didn't help. They reached Danny's dormitory. The door had been sealed by security, and a crowd had gathered at a safe distance. Danny spotted Pip among them, looking absolutely terrified. Last chance to reconsider this, Quellen said. We can have the creature transported to a containment facility without you having to interact with it again. No, Danny said firmly. You're going to see that he's harmless, and then everyone can calm down. Very well. Officers, prepare for hostile engagement. Danny opened the door slowly. If the creature shows any signs of aggression, hit the deck and let us handle it. Danny took a deep breath and keyed in his code. The door slid open with a soft hiss. For a moment, nothing happened. Then from inside the room came a sound that made every security officer tense. It was a bark. Not threatening, just excited. The sound a dog makes when his favorite person comes home. Fluffy bounded into view, tail wagging so hard his entire back half moved with it. He saw Danny and immediately jumped up, putting his front paws on Danny's chest, trying to lick his face. Down, boy, Danny said, laughing despite the situation. You're going to get me in trouble. But when Fluffy dropped back to all fours and Danny turned around, he saw something he hadn't expected. Every single officer had their weapons raised. Quellen had backed up several steps, his colors a panicked purple. Hilax held her scanner like it was a shield, and they were all staring at Fluffy with expressions of absolute terror. Fluffy sat on his haunches, tongue hanging out, tail still wagging. He looked at the armed security officers with the happy curiosity of a dog who thought everyone was there to visit him. When nobody moved, he tilted his head to one side, making a small questioning sound. It's displaying submission behavior, Hilax said quietly, not lowering her scanner. Or it could be a hunting tactic. That's not submission, Danny said, trying to keep the frustration out of his voice. He's just wondering why nobody's petting him yet. He thinks you're all here to say hello. It thinks we're pack members? Officer Brent asked, his centipede body coiled tight and ready to spring. He thinks you're friends, Danny corrected. Or at least potential friends. Dogs are social. They like people. It likes potential prey, you mean? Quellen said, though his colors had shifted from panic purple to a wary yellow. Danny made a decision. He walked over to Fluffy and sat down on the floor beside him. The dog immediately crawled into his lap, which was awkward because Fluffy weighed about 70 pounds, but Danny managed. He wrapped his arms around the dog and looked up at the assembled group. "This is what he does," Danny said simply. "He sits with me. He follows me around. When I'm studying, he sleeps under my desk. When I'm sad, he puts his head on my knee. That's what dogs do. They're companions." Fluffy yawned hugely, showing all his teeth, and several officers flinched. "The display of dentition is a threat response," Hillax noted. "He's yawning because he was napping before you all showed up," Danny said. "Look, I get it. You see the teeth, the claws, the muscle? You see a predator. But I see my friend. He's been bred for thousands of years to be with humans. It's not just training, it's in his DNA now. Breeding can be undone," Quellen argued. "Instincts can resurface." "Sure," Danny acknowledged. "A dog that's abused or starved might become dangerous. But Fluffy is fed, loved, and happy. He has no reason to hurt anyone. Perhaps you could demonstrate?" Hillax suggested, though she still hadn't lowered her scanner. "Show us these companion behaviors you describe." Danny nodded. He gently pushed Fluffy off his lap and stood up. "Fluffy, sit." Fluffy sat, looking up at Danny expectantly. "Good boy. Now lay down." Fluffy dropped to his belly, tail still moving. "Roll over." Fluffy rolled onto his back, exposing his stomach and throat, legs in the air. "That is a submission posture," Hillax said with certainty. "Exposing the vulnerable areas indicates acceptance of dominance." "Or he wants belly rubs," Danny said, kneeling down to scratch Fluffy's stomach. The dog's back legs started kicking in pleasure. "See? He likes it. It experiences pleasure from having its vulnerable areas touched." Officer Brent sounded confused. "Dogs like affection," Danny explained. "Physical contact releases happy chemicals in their brains. Same as humans." He stood up again. "Fluffy, speak." Fluffy barked once. "Quiet." Fluffy closed his mouth. "Shake." Fluffy lifted his right paw. Danny took it and shook it gently, like a handshake. Several beings in the watching crowd made surprised sounds. "The creature understands commands," Quellen observed. "That suggests intelligence." "Dogs are smart," Danny agreed. "Not like human smart, but smart enough. They understand tone, body language, hundreds of different words if you train them. Fluffy knows his name, knows commands, knows the schedule for meals and walks. He's even learned that the bell sound means I have class and he has to stay in the room." "It accepts confinement?" Hillax asked. "He doesn't love it, but yeah. He sleeps mostly. Sometimes he plays with his toys and toys." Quellen's colors flickered with confusion. Danny walked back into the room and returned with a worn rubber ball and a rope toy. He tossed the ball down the corridor. Fluffy took off after it, caught it in his mouth, and brought it back, dropping it at Danny's feet. "See? He plays fetch. It's a game. I throw, he retrieves, we repeat until one of us gets tired. Usually me." He picked up the rope toy and offered one end to Fluffy. The dog grabbed the other end in his teeth and pulled. Danny pulled back and they had a brief tug of war before Danny let Fluffy win. The dog pranced around with the rope like he'd won a prize. "This is playing?" Officer Brent asked. "This simulated combat behavior is recreational. It's fun for him," Danny said. "Burns energy, gives him something to do. Dogs need exercise and stimulation. What happens if he doesn't get these things?" Hillax asked sharply. "He gets bored. Might chew on stuff he shouldn't. Might get restless. But he's never aggressive if that's what you're worried about." Pip had been gradually moving closer during the demonstration. Now the small Verdanian spoke up from the edge of the crowd. "Danny, I have observed Fluffy in our dormitory. I have never seen him behave threateningly. He is always as Danny describes, calm, friendly, playful. You've been living with this creature?" Quellen turned his attention to Pip. "For 3 months," Pip confirmed, though he still looked nervous. "At first I was terrified. I hid in my sleeping alcove whenever Fluffy was present. But Danny was always there, showing me that Fluffy meant no harm. Eventually I became accustomed to him." "You touched it?" Hillax asked. "Once," Pip admitted. Danny suggested I pet his head. It was very soft, and Fluffy seemed to enjoy it. He made a please sound and his tail moved rapidly. "The tail movement indicates emotional state," Danny added. "Fast wagging means happy. Slow wagging means uncertain. Tail between legs means scared. You can read his mood." Professor Hillax finally lowered her scanner. She took a careful step forward. Fluffy watched her with interest but didn't move from his spot near Danny. "May I?" Hillax asked. "Sure," Danny said. "Just let him sniff your hand first. That's how dogs greet people." Hilax extended one of her forehands slowly. Fluffy sniffed it carefully, his nose working to gather information. Then his tail started wagging again and he licked her palm. "It's tasting me," Hilax said, alarmed. "He's giving you a kiss," Danny corrected. "It's affection. He likes you. The creature likes me?" Hilax sounded amazed. "Based on what assessment?" "You smell interesting, probably," Danny said. "And you're not acting scared anymore. Dogs can sense emotions. They respond to confidence and calm." Tentatively, Hilax reached out with another hand and touched the top of Fluffy's head. The dog leaned into the touch, tail wagging harder. "It is very soft," Hilax admitted, "and warm. I can feel the muscle beneath the fur, but also something else. A contentment, perhaps. He's happy," Danny said simply. "That's what you're feeling. A happy dog." Other security officers began to relax slightly. Quellen's colors were shifting toward a curious green. Even Officer Brent uncurled a bit. "This is remarkable," Hilax said, continuing to pet Fluffy. "A predator modified through selective breeding to desire companionship with another species. To find joy in service and proximity rather than in the hunt." "We changed each other," Danny explained. "Humans became better hunters because we had dogs. Dogs became companions because we fed and sheltered them. It's been a partnership for so long that neither species remembers a time before it." "But they could survive without you?" Quellen asked. "Some could," Danny admitted. "Dogs that go feral can form wild packs, but most domestic dogs struggle alone. They're bred to need us, just like we've grown to need them." Fluffy, sensing he'd won over the crowd, flopped onto his back again, clearly hoping for more belly rubs. Hilax obliged with two of her hands. 3 weeks after what students now called the Fluffy incident, the Galactic Xenobiology Institute looked different, not physically but in atmosphere. Groups of students could be seen watching videos of Earth animals during breaks. The library had expanded its section on Deathworld ecology, and most notably, Fluffy had become something of a station celebrity. Danny walked through the common area with Fluffy trotting beside him, no leash required. The dog had learned to heel properly, staying close to Danny's left side. Students still gave them space, but now it was out of respect rather than fear. Some even waved or called greetings to the dog. "Fluffy is looking well today," Vorn rumbled as they passed. The big Dralian was no longer intimidated by the dog. In fact, Fluffy had taken to napping against Vorn's rocky form during study sessions, apparently finding the warmth pleasant. "Thanks," Danny replied. "We went to the park level this morning. He made some new friends." "I heard," Vorn said with something that might have been amusement. 3 Polonian younglings and a Cathari elder, according to reports. The elder apparently declared Fluffy a most educational specimen. Danny grinned. That elder gave him treats and asked a million questions about dog behavior.
"I think she's writing a paper." The championship had resumed after Professor Hilax declared the Fluffy situation resolved and educational.
The incident had sparked a broader conversation about companionship, domestication, and the ways different species approach danger. Danny's unintentional demonstration had become a case study. In class that afternoon, Hilax announced a new assignment structure. "We will be examining Deathworld ecosystems and how sentient species adapt to and thrive in hostile environments. Danny has agreed to serve as a guest lecturer for the Earth section." Guest lecturer was generous. Danny mostly answered questions while Hilax provided the academic framework. But the students were genuinely interested now, asking detailed questions about how humans coexisted with dangerous fauna. "What I find most fascinating," Hilax said during one session, "is not that humans conquered these predators through superior force. The weapons came later. No, what allowed humans to thrive was their willingness to form relationships with their environment, rather than simply dominating it." "Could you elaborate, Professor?" Lear asked. Hilax gestured to Danny. "Humans didn't just domesticate dogs to use as tools. They formed genuine bonds. They bred them not just for function, but for companionship. Dogs became family members. This pattern repeats across human history. Horses, cats, even birds and reptiles. Humans seem to possess an unusual capacity to look at a wild creature and imagine friendship." "It's not that unusual," Danny protested mildly. "Other species keep pets too." "Small, harmless pets," Hilax corrected. "Decorative creatures or herbivores. Humans keep predators. They keep dangerous animals from their own world and call them companions. It suggests a fundamentally different relationship with danger itself." Vorn spoke up. "I've been thinking about this. On Drail, we avoid the Crimson Hunters. We built our cities in areas they don't frequent. We adapted by creating separation. Sensible, Hilex agreed. But humans didn't separate, Vorn continued. They moved into territories occupied by bears, wolves, lions. They didn't avoid danger. They learned to navigate it. That's not bravery or foolishness. That's a completely different survival strategy. Adaptation through understanding rather than avoidance, Hilex said, nodding. Yes, that's precisely the point. Humans study the dangerous things. They learn patterns, behaviors, limits. Knowledge becomes their primary defense. And when knowledge isn't enough? Pip asked quietly. Then we use tools, Danny said. But even that's changed over time. Modern humans don't kill predators just for being predators. We relocate them, protect their habitats, try to minimize conflict. We've learned that eliminating predators causes ecosystem collapse. Your species protects the things that can kill you? Officer Brent, who had started sitting in on lectures, sounded baffled. We protect the balance, Danny explained. Kill all the wolves, deer populations explode and starve. Kill all the sharks, fish populations change and reef systems die. Everything is connected. We learned that the hard way. The discussion continued, branching into philosophy, ecology, and evolutionary psychology. Danny noticed that the other students no longer looked at him like he was crazy. Instead, they looked at him like he was a puzzle they were trying to solve. After class, Professor Hilex asked Danny to stay behind again. This time, the atmosphere was friendly rather than confrontational. You've handled this well, she said. The attention, the questions, the pressure of representing your entire species. I'm just telling the truth, Danny said. That's why it works, Hilex replied. You don't exaggerate or minimize. You present Earth as it is, danger and beauty together. It's helped students understand that deathworlds aren't just hostile. They're complex. Is that why you're really teaching this? Danny asked. Not just the biology, but getting students to think differently about dangerous environments. Hilak's expression became serious. The galaxy is expanding. We're encountering more worlds, more species, more ecosystems we don't understand. Some of those will be deathworlds. We need xenobiologists who don't panic at the first sign of danger, who can study hostile environments without dismissing them as uninhabitable. You've shown that it's possible to respect danger without being paralyzed by it. I just brought my dog to school, Danny said. You brought a predator and demonstrated that understanding transforms fear into respect, Hilex corrected. That's valuable. The research grant from the championship, by the way, we've decided to award it to you. Even though you technically didn't win all the rounds, I didn't win. Danny was genuinely surprised. Lear correctly identified more species in the final count, Hilex explained. But the board agreed that your contributions to xenobiology education outweighed pure numerical scoring. You taught us something we didn't know we needed to learn. Danny wasn't sure what to say to that. There's one more thing, Hilex added. We're establishing a new program, Comparative Deathworld Studies. We want you to help design the curriculum. With your perspective and my academic credentials, we can create something unique. You want me to teach? Danny asked. I want you to share what you know, Hilex said. Not just about Earth, but about the mindset that allows a species to thrive in extreme conditions. Other Deathworld species might benefit from human approaches to danger management. And non-Deathworlders need to understand that hostile doesn't mean uninhabitable. Danny thought about it. About Pip, who had gone from terrified of Fluffy to occasionally tossing the dog treats. About Vorn, who had started researching Earth's geology and seemed fascinated by plate tectonics. About Lear, who had asked Danny for reading recommendations about human history. Okay, Danny agreed. I'll help. But I want Fluffy to be part of it. Hands-on learning. The dog becomes an educational assistant. Hilex considered this. Unorthodox, but given the circumstances appropriate, agreed. They shook hands. One of Hilex's 4 meeting Danny's one. It felt like a beginning rather than an ending. That evening, Danny sat in the dormitory common area with Fluffy sprawled across his lap. Pip was at the desk working on homework. Vorn had squeezed his bulk into the corner, reading something on his datapad. Lear floated near the window, their crystalline form catching the light from the station's artificial sun. Danny, Pip said without looking up from his work, I've been researching Earth mammals. Did you know humans also domesticated felines? Cats, yeah. The file says they are predators even more efficient than canines, Pip continued. solitary hunters with retractable claws and excellent night vision. Why would humans domesticate something that hunts alone? Cats domesticated themselves, actually, Danny said. They hung around human settlements because we had grain, which attracted mice, which cats hunted. Eventually, we decided we liked having them around. You invited them in because they killed your vermin? Vorn looked up. That's actually practical. And then we spoiled them and let them become tiny household dictators, Danny added with a grin. I feel like there's a lesson in this, Lear mused. But I'm not sure what it is. Maybe that coexistence is possible even when it seems impossible, Danny suggested. Humans and wolves became humans and dogs. Humans and wildcats became humans and house cats. We're good at making friends with things that probably should eat us. Should eat you but don't, Pip corrected. Important distinction. Fluffy, sensing he was the topic of conversation, lifted his head and yawned. Then he settled back down, content to be exactly where he was. Danny scratched behind the dog's ears and looked at his assembled friends. Alien species who had been strangers months ago, now sitting together like it was the most natural thing in the galaxy. Maybe, he thought, that was the real lesson Earth had to teach. Not about surviving danger, but about building bridges across differences. And sometimes those bridges had 4 legs and a wagging tail.